My name is Thomas Morgan. I was born up in the Shenandoah Valley. By the time I was 5, we had moved down into the Piedmont of North Carolina, looking for a better life. Of course, we were still under the rule of King George III. He was quite a tyrant. By the time I'd become a man with a family of my own, he'd taxed us so heavily we couldn't afford to pay our taxes. But I'd heard about a few venturous men that had crossed the Blue Ridge over into the Cherokee territory. Men like William Bean, James Robinson. And I also heard that people were settling on the other side of the mountain. In the summer of 1773, I packed my family up, crossed the mountain down into the Watauga Valley, met some folks, heard about a man named Jacob Brown who had set up trading down on the Nolichucky River. Went down and met the gentleman, got a fine piece of land from him. We commenced work and building us a cabin, worked day and night. Most of the land had already been cleared by the Cherokee years before. We began to plant crops. But like every other man that crossed those mountains, I joined the militia. Served under Colonel John Sevier, Nolichucky Jack's what we called him. And they used us to build roads, to raise barns, to protect the settlements. Well, the leaders, commanders had got together and they wrote something called the Articles of the Watauga. As far as I know, that was the first free and independent government that was established outside the 13 colonies. A little while later, a man by the name of Richard Henderson wanted to buy a huge tract of land from the Cherokee. He called a meeting on the Watauga. We rode up to see what it was about. I never seen so many Cherokee in one spot in my life. The principal chief, Attakulla, Little Carpenter we called him, he sold Henderson a huge tract of land that would later become Kentucky. A young warrior by the name of Dragon Canoe protested to settle on this land. He took a large group of warriors and moved west down on the Tennessee River and formed what was called the Chickamauga Band. His main goal was to push all us settlers back over the mountain. Well, we were charged to build the very first fort on this side of the mountain. We named it Fort Lee. They called up all the militia. We started cutting logs, started building the fort near the mouth of Big Limestone Creek on the Nolichucky. We almost had it finished, and we got a message from the beloved woman of the Cherokee, Nancy Ward. Said that Dragon Canoe was coming with a massive force of warriors. Most everybody left, went up to the Watauga, fortified the home of Matthew Talbot, squatted down and waited for the attack. Colonel Sevier and a handful of us, we stayed thinking we might be able to protect Fort Lee, but the colonel decided the force was too much against us. So we fell back to the Watauga. A good thing for us, as they came through, Dragon Canoe split his forces. Raven took his warriors and went to Carter Valley, Southwest Virginia, raiding and burning. Dragon Canoe took most of his warriors and went to Long Island. Old Abram brought his warriors straight toward us to Fort Watauga. Well, the morning of the attack, we were all in the fort, except for a few girls that went out to milk. We heard some screams, scrambled to the wall. All these young ladies was running toward the fort with the warriors right behind them. They got in the fort, they closed the gates, all but one. A young girl by the name of Bonnie Kate Sherrill. She was trapped outside the fort, the warriors right on her heels. She ran to the fort and was trying her best to scale the fort walls. Colonel Sevier grabbed her hand and pulled her across. Well, old Abram and his warriors, they kept us under siege for 2 weeks. During that time, I remember one morning the warriors tried to set fire to the walls of the fort. And Ann Robinson, James Robinson's sister, just so happens that the ladies had been heating water to do washing. She formed a brigade of the women with buckets and she climbed the wall, poured scalding water on the warriors, putting the fire out. She's quite the hero. Well, after about 2 weeks, I guess they'd lost interest in the siege, and they backed off, left us alone. But for the next year or so, it seemed like every month or so, we was trying to protect our home. And during that time, we had heard that George Washington had raised a Continental Army up north and was taking a stand against the British. But I got to tell you, that war seemed a lifetime away from us because we was busy trying to protect our homes and families and our newfound freedom. We really didn't think it would affect us much. We were wrong. Eventually, it found us. I'd like to invite you to join me again next week as I take you deeper into the story and further down the trail. Thank you.